If you've been dealing with anxiety for a long time now, you might well be wondering why you haven't managed to change this yet. Or you might even have concluded the reason is that you're just afflicted with a disordered anxiety response and you'll always be like this. Well, the good news is that the reason you're feeling stuck right now isn't to do with any pathology, biology, or genetics, and is more to do with your psychology. It's more about the way you think than the way you were built. In this video, I'm going to be explaining why we get stuck feeling unable to change our anxiety response and the right way to address this so that we finally become unstuck. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tim Box. I'm a mind coach, anxiety therapist, and for more than a decade now, I've been working one-to-one with clients to help them overcome all sorts of anxiety-related issues. And it's very common that clients tell me they fear they're stuck like this for good. The terms hopeless case or lost cause are ones I hear a lot. But whilst I've met so many people who thought they were beyond help, I've never met anyone that actually was. As human beings, we always have the ability to change and grow. Our brain is a learning machine and as such is constantly looking for better and more effective paths to happiness. The reason we become stuck in a pattern of thinking that causes unhappiness is because there's a part of us that is for some reason, based on the things we've learned in the past, placing some value on that particular emotional strategy. All we really need to do to elicit change is to work out why that is and help that part of us formulate a better one. Now, in many instances, this can be a very simple process. It's just a question of working out what we learnt about our limitations that no longer applies, if ever it even did. For example, maybe the vulnerability we felt when we were younger doesn't need to be a concern now that we're older. Maybe the bad experience we had at some point simply gave us a slightly negatively biased perspective on life's challenges and our own ability to cope with them, and that's what needs updating. Maybe we just got the idea that our own emotional responses were something to be afraid of, and we need to correct that misunderstanding. There can be so many ideas and beliefs we have that need no longer hold us back. But sometimes that part of our mind that's creating a high anxiety response has already recognized that change is available, but has just rejected that idea. And that rejection is based on other reasons. Reasons that might surprise you. So let's break down the main reasons our mind actively holds on to emotional responses and patterns of thought that don't now help us, and talk about how we change this. Whilst we might consciously be thinking that anything would be better than the way we feel right now, it doesn't necessarily help us make the change we want to make. Us humans have an aversion to experimenting with the unknown. As unpleasant as the current situation might be, if we had no idea what the alternative is, we might simply opt for the devil we know rather than the one we don't. We end up sticking with the unpleasant yet familiar feelings rather than embracing who we might become and how we might feel without them. Anxiety, when it's stuck around for a while, can often feel like our identity, and we can start to become afraid of contemplating who we might be if it wasn't there in the same way as it is now. In these instances, it can be worth reminding ourselves that change is always going to be scary, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But of course, the scarier thing would be to never change and just stay the way we are. Whilst it might feel challenging to step outside of our comfort zone, when we make the leap, we'll find that our comfort zone very quickly extends to incorporate everything new that comes with freedom from excessive anxiety. Then we realize the version of us that we were afraid to explore very quickly becomes our brand new normal. There's this thing us therapists talk about called secondary gains. These are the hidden yet no less important benefits we get from our otherwise entirely unhelpful patterns of thought and behaviour. They're separate yet not unrelated reasons why our mind decides to hold on to an unhelpful strategy. Some examples of secondary gain include remaining anxious because a part of our mind values the help and attention we get when we feel highly anxious. Perhaps friends are more attentive and caring in those moments. Perhaps the therapy we get to help us deal with anxiety is something we don't want to stop having. If we felt better, maybe our therapist would finish the sessions and we'd be left without that emotional crutch. Sometimes we might perceive our place within our relationships or social dynamic to be as the anxious one. We might fear rejection or abandonment if we actually change fundamentally who we are as a person. There can be so many reasons why our mind turns away from change, simply because it perceives some sort of hidden benefit to the way we currently are. Changing is often about bringing that hidden subconscious pattern of thought, whatever it might be, into our conscious awareness so that we can address it directly. At the end of the day, they're called secondary gains because they are inevitably secondary to our primary purpose, which is to reduce anxiety and live a happy life. Any fear our mind has of losing something in the process is often based on some perception that this is a loss we couldn't bear. In truth, that fear is probably invalid, or at the very least not worth the greater loss we're currently trying to cope with, the loss of emotional freedom and long-term happiness. The final reason is perhaps the strangest one to get our heads around. Sometimes our mind doesn't want to change because it's engaged in what's known as cognitive bias. When we hold a current belief, our mind tends to block out the things that contradict that belief. And you see this in politics all the time. People get presented with a very obvious truth that refutes their belief system, but they're so invested in those beliefs, they reject it. They even double down twice as hard on the belief they currently hold. I've often come across clients that have a part of their subconscious that has been doing this high anxiety thing for so long that it kind of says, well, if it turns out that I'm wrong about the things I currently regard to be fearful, then that would mean I've been wrong for the last 20 years, and that's been the problem all along. That's probably not an easy thing for that part of us to just accept. I hear people every day adamantly telling others they have a disorder, an illness, a chemical imbalance, simply because to accept they could change would mean that they could have changed all this time but just didn't. Well, here's the thing. That part of your mind creating high anxiety, there was a point in your life when that was perceived to be the necessary emotional strategy. It was deemed appropriate. We felt vulnerable and we needed a part of us to step up and ring the alarm bell. That part stepped up. We can't knock it for that. In fact, the job it was asked to do, it's done brilliantly. But like every job that's done well, there comes a point when it's complete. And that moment is now. We can be happy and grateful to that part of us for doing this difficult job for so long. We just want it to recognize that today that job is finished and it can move on to the next one now. Or let's face it could just have a break or even retire. Perhaps we don't need that part of our mind playing the role of the nervous babysitter anymore. So here's the important bit. There can be lots of different reasons why your mind is actively resisting the changes you want to make regarding your own anxiety response. If you've been stuck a while, it isn't because you're wired up wrong. It might just be because you have a part of your subconscious invested in blocking this change right now. However, if we stop and take time to understand that part and give it the answers and the help it needs, it might surprise you how quickly it can change its mind. If you want to know more about how to work directly with your own subconscious, then check out the members area of this channel. For just £9, you get access to my full control system self-hypnosis method for changing your own patterns of thought. You also get the full Clear Your Head Anxiety Relief Program, and every week I go live for the members to do an exclusive anxiety Q&A. Just click the join button on the homepage or the link in the description of this video, and I'll see you on the other side. Or if you'd like personal guidance in this process, then get in touch for details of my one-to-one sessions. I really hope you found this video valuable. If so, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more help with anxiety-related issues. But that's all for now. I'm Tim Box. Always remember, be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.